Chapter 8 Black Hole. One evening, after a particularly grueling study session, a wave of profound loneliness washed over him, a cold, crushing weight that felt utterly unbearable. He missed Vera's gentle presence, her knowing smiles, her unwavering belief in him. He longed for the simple comfort of her hand in his, and then a new question, born of his grief and heightened vulnerability, began to surface, a question he had never dared to ask before, a fundamental query about his very existence. He called Adam late at night in Belgium, the time difference irrelevant in his grief. "Dad?" River's voice was hoarse. "River." "You're up late," Adam observed, his voice tired but steady. "I can't sleep," River admitted. He took a shaky breath. "Dad, I need to ask you something I've never asked, something I need to understand now that she's gone." He paused, the words heavy on his tongue. Why did you and Mom, why did you adopt me? You were, you were older, and why the name River? No one was holding you. No one was even looking at you." River imagined the scene, a tiny abandoned infant, a lonely presence in a room full of new life and joyful parents. The image pierced him, resonating with the deep-seated fear of abandonment he carried. Vera just stood there. Adam's voice was soft, filled with wonder. "She stared at you, and she said, 'Adam, look at him. He's so utterly alone. May I ask if I can rock him?' And she just looked at you, River, and a profound love, the kind I had never seen before, just filled her eyes. It was instant. It was powerful. She fell in love with you right then and there. Through that large window, she saw a soul that needed her, and her soul called out to yours." Adam chuckled softly, a bittersweet sound. "We spent the rest of the day there just watching you. We asked the nurses. They told us your birth parents had left you, no name, no history, just a baby. Vera, she just knew. She said, 'This is our child, Adam. This is the child we were meant to have.' And I saw it too. I saw her heart completely filled, and I knew right then that you were meant to be our son. As for your name," Adam continued, a gentle smile in his voice, "Vera chose it. She said she read somewhere that the name River symbolized life, journey, constant flow, something ever moving, ever changing, but always finding its path. She said you would be a strong current. In your eyes, she said they were the color of deep river water. She thought it was beautiful. And she loved you so, River, from that very first moment, unconditionally, with every fiber of her being." River could only weep, silent, cleansing tears. He finally understood not just the story of his adoption, but the depth of a love that had always been a mystery to him, a profound, unwavering love that had chosen him when he was utterly unchosen. It didn't erase the pain of his biological family's cruelty, or the wreckage Lakin had left in her wake, but it wrapped him in a warmth he hadn't known he desperately needed. "You were never a replacement," Adam added quietly. "You were our miracle and our gift." River pressed the phone tighter to his ear, as if he could somehow hold on to this truth a little longer. "Thank you," he whispered, "for telling me. I love you, son," Adam said, "always." That was never in question. River sat in the quiet after the call ended, the hum of the city outside dim against the roaring grief and love inside him. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't drowning his pain. He was floating in something else. Grief, yes, but also meaning. The kind that could only come from being truly, wholly loved. The funeral was small and private, held beneath a canopy of bare-limbed trees in the Belgian countryside. A soft mist clung to the grass, the sky a dull pewter, as if even the heavens mourned the loss of Vera. River stood beside Adam, the cold air biting at his exposed hands, the dull ache in his chest growing sharper with every word spoken over her grave. No music played, no fanfare, just the rustle of wind through leaves and the quiet sobs of those who had known her best. He stared at the casket, a polished mahogany box that seemed too final, too unforgiving. Inside was the woman who had saved him, not with medicine or logic, but with love so steady and fierce it had reassembled him from brokenness. She had cradled him in her arms like a child, even when he had been no longer one. She had held the pieces together when he wanted to fall apart. Now the world felt like it had tipped sideways. Adam's hand was firm on his shoulder, but he said little. Grief had made them men of few words, yet River could feel the unspoken love in the gesture, the way his father refused to cry until they were alone. Afterward, the house was too quiet, too vast, a vacuum where laughter once lived. Vera's presence was everywhere and nowhere. Her hand-knit blankets draped over the armchairs, her recipes tucked into cookbooks with notes in the margins. the faint scent of lavender clinging to the pillows in their bedroom. River found himself sitting in her chair just to feel near her. He touched the fabric like it might bring her back. He stayed longer than he planned. A week turned into 10 days, and still he wasn't ready to leave. He helped Adam sift through boxes, carefully folding scarves Vera had worn, setting aside photographs and albums worn soft from years of handling. They didn't talk much, but they cooked together. They washed dishes together. In those quiet, mundane moments, something softened between them. Once, late at night, River found Adam in the kitchen holding a half-empty glass of wine, staring at a photo of Vera from their wedding. He didn't say a word, and River didn't intrude, but something about that silence felt sacred. A husband mourning his best friend, and River understood, finally, that Adam's stoicism wasn't absent. It was a pain too large for words. When he finally returned to Los Angeles, it wasn't a relief he felt stepping into his apartment. It was hollow. Lakin was gone. Moved in with Ralph, Ireland had said. The divorce papers were sitting on the counter, cold and legal. No note, no apology. Just a manila envelope with his name scrawled across the top. He signed it and tossed it aside without opening it. The space was sterile, haunted by arguments and apathy. He couldn't bring himself to sleep in the bedroom. He spent his nights on the couch, surrounded by textbooks and case studies. It was easier to drown in work than feel the empty space Vera had left behind, but her voice lived in his head. Study hard, River. Keep going, my boy. He did. Every hour not in the hospital, he buried himself in the library. He drank too much coffee, forgot meals, and refused sleep. The outlines of his life blurred, just charts and symptoms and drug interactions. And still, the grief leaked in. During procedures, in the moments between heartbeats, he'd hear her laugh, or smell lavender and forget it was just the nurse's perfume. The tremor in his hands returned, a whisper of the old darkness, a reminder of how fragile his control really was. But he didn't fall. He clenched his jaw, took a breath, and kept moving forward. The clock on River's laptop blinked 2:47 a.m., the sterile blue light burning against the darkness of his apartment. Outside, Los Angeles buzzed with its usual insomnia. Cars passing in the distance, someone shouting into the night. But inside, the silence was heavy, suffocating. River sat hunched over a dense pathology textbook, his vision blurring. The ink on the page swam, the words dissolving. He blinked hard. His temples ached. His shoulders were locked in tension. The cold edge of the desk pressed into his forearms. He was so tired, but he was afraid of what sleep would bring. Nightmares had returned with cruel clarity, Vera's pale face fading from his grasp, the echo of her voice saying, "Go, River, live," followed by the sound of metal crushing metal, then Ralph's laughter and Lakin's indifference. The worst nights were the ones where he dreamt of Kate, smiling, alive, reaching for him just before vanishing. A buzz broke through the quiet. His phone lit up with an unknown number. He should have ignored it. Everything rational in him screamed, "Let it ring." But something crawled under his skin, and he answered. "Hello?" The voice that slid down the line was syrupy and sharp as a blade. Well, if it isn't the prodigal son, still playing martyr, River?" His stomach clenched. Ireland. His voice was low, drained. She giggled. Still got that voice. Tired. Tragic. Sexy in a martyrdom kind of way. "I don't have time for this," he snapped, already reaching for the red end button. "Oh, but you'll want to hear this," she purred. "It's about Kate." He froze. Every muscle in his body went rigid. "What?" I figured that would get your attention. Her words dripped with pleasure. "Kate, the name you whimpered in your sleep like a prayer. Remember that Christmas Eve? Right before your grand little meltdown." His mouth was dry. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, come now," Ireland sighed. "You're not good at hiding your ghosts, River. I remember how broken you looked that night. Your hands are shaking, drunk off grief and guilt. You passed out with her name on your lips." He said nothing. He couldn't. She had found the one thing he had managed to keep hidden, even from himself. "I got curious," she continued, a little digging, a few online footprints. "She's quite the artist, soft-spoken, sweet, tragic even. And now," her voice sang, "now she's my friend." The blood drained from his face. "You're lying." "I'm not," Ireland whispered. "She's in Scotland, but we've talked. She's lovely. Fragile, though. So tender when I told her what you'd been through. She really feels for you." River's stomach turned. "You told her about Lakin?" he asked. "Of course. And about the accident, the addiction, the music, the mask, everything." She hummed. "She asked questions, River. She wanted to know. And I gave her all the answers." He felt sick. You used me. No, Ireland corrected. I gave her context. I painted you as the sad, complicated anti-hero. Don't worry. She thinks you're tragic. She adores the tragic. There was a pause, faint rustle. Then, a voice. Her voice. Kate. So much sadness, she said, unaware she was on speaker. I used to wonder why he ran. Maybe now I know. Maybe he never stopped running. River's heart cracked. He held his breath. I think about him sometimes. Not as much as I used to, but still, sometimes. A soft laugh. I see a musician in the street, and I wonder. I see blue eyes in a crowd, and I hope. Isn't that silly? River nearly dropped the phone. His chest hurt. Then Kate continued, quieter. But I can't imagine. I have the boys now. I have my life. I couldn't invite chaos back in. Not when they need stability. Not when I fought so hard to build peace. Boys. Her sons. His breath caught. I'm happy now, Ireland. I am. There are parts of me I don't show anyone, not even their father. A pause. A tiny ache in her words. There's a version of me only he knew. The version that believed love could rewrite everything. River's heart screamed. He pressed the phone harder to his ear, like he could pull her voice closer. Then a silence fell, a strange stillness. River? Kate's voice sharpened. Is he on the line? A long pause. Then River found his voice wrecked and vulnerable. Hi, Katie. A sharp inhale. He could hear her world shatter in real time. You're here? She breathed. On this call? I didn't know you were. He choked, the words catching. I just wanted to hear your voice. I didn't know she'd brought you onto the call. There was a horrible silence. And then, quietly, brokenly, I shouldn't have answered, she whispered. And the line died. The dial tone screamed in River's ear, a harsh, grating sound that matched the chaos still ripping through him. Ireland had hung up. The line went dead, but the ghost she'd conjured didn't. He sat frozen, the phone still pressed to his cheek, his hand trembling so violently it might have been someone else's. Silence enveloped the room, but it wasn't peaceful. It was deafening. Inside it echoed a chorus of voices. Ireland's venom-laced triumph, Kate's gentle confusion, and that awful realization. He'd shattered the performance Ireland had so carefully constructed, but at what cost? He slumped back into the desk chair, the worn leather groaning beneath him. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, unsteady and erratic. Shame flared hot in his chest. Shame at being exposed. Having his most sacred memories twisted into weapons by someone so cruel. He had been utterly disarmed, reduced to a collection of traumas and failures, paraded in front of the one woman he'd ever truly loved. And yet, there was that voice, Kate's voice, clear, untouched, real. River, what? Are you on the phone? The memory of it hit him like a current, a brief flash of something pure. Her words hadn't been cold, they hadn't been angry, she hadn't recoiled. She was confused, startled, maybe even hurt, but not hateful. It wasn't much, but it was more than Ireland could ever counterfeit. That single, unfiltered moment had slipped through her performance. It was Kate, and it reminded him painfully that she had once seen him, truly seen him, and loved him anyway. He leaned forward, burying his face in his hands. His palms dug into his eyes, trying to push back the burn of tears. The roar in his head only grew louder. Grief, guilt, shame, want. Ireland had unearthed everything he tried to bury beneath scrubs and sheet music and sleepless nights. His longing for Kate was no longer a secret sin. Now it was a bleeding wound. She has children. She's happy. She's moved on. And now, thanks to Ireland, she saw him not as the boy she once loved, but as a man undone. A man broke. Pitiable. That, more than anything, cut the deepest. He didn't want her pity. Not Kate. Never Kate. He wanted her warmth, her understanding, her forgiveness maybe, but not at the expense of his dignity. Not handed to him through Ireland's poisoned narrative. Like a bandage for a man too lost to stand. Staggering to the bathroom, Rivers splashed cold water onto his face. It ran down his cheeks like the tears he wouldn't let fall. He stared at his reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, a stranger who looked too much like someone who had already given up. He looked like someone not worth loving. But that wasn't all he was. He was the velvet mask, pouring his pain into music that millions clung to. He was a doctor in training, clawing his way through grief for a promise made to a dying mother. And beneath it all, he was still River, the boy Vera had chosen from behind a nursery glass window who'd been rocked into belonging. He wasn't proud of the man in the mirror. But maybe, just maybe, he wasn't hopeless. Back at his desk, he didn't open a textbook. He didn't check his music streams. He sat in the dark, the phone in his lap, as the storm of emotion crashed around him. The quiet rang with Kate's voice, soft, sad, real. The ghost of her clung to every shadow in the apartment. And amid the devastation Ireland had tried to create, a fragile hope stirred, not enough to reach for, but enough to ache. Because now Kate knew, and somewhere in that knowing, whether twisted or true, was the spark of something unfinished. 2 days later, River was still operating on autopilot, fueled by caffeine and sheer will. The hospital had become his primary refuge, the relentless demands of his internship a welcome distraction from the turmoil in his apartment. He was immersed in the controlled chaos of the ER, assisting with a trauma patient, the immediate need for his medical skills a powerful anchor in his otherwise adrift existence. The adrenaline of the emergency, the focus required to assess, stabilize, and assist, pushed all other thoughts aside. Finally returned to his apartment just after midnight, his body screaming for rest. He tossed his scrubs into the hamper and headed straight for the kitchen, desperate for anything that resembled food. As he pulled his laptop from his bag to check his work email, his gaze fell on his personal inbox. A new message. The sender's name stopped him cold, Kate. His breath hitched. His heart, already thrumming from the hospital rush, began to pound a frantic rhythm. He stared at the screen, a primal urge to open it warring with a profound, almost paralyzing fear. What would it say? Would it be filled with pity, a confirmation of Ireland's cruel narrative? Would it be a final, gentle dismissal? Or something worse? The fear of reopening that wound, of reliving the pain of Berlin, of confronting his past failures was almost unbearable. He had pushed her away so many times, both then and now. Did he deserve this? He closed the laptop for a moment, pressing his palms against the cool metal, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He walked to the window, staring out at the dark, indifferent city lights, their distant glow mirroring the cold detachment he often felt. He took a long, shaky breath. He had to know. He had to face it. He returned to the laptop, his fingers trembling slightly as he opened the email. The subject line was simple, thinking of you. He clicked. The email wasn't long, but it shimmered with the unmistakable cadence of her voice, calm, sincere, and imbued with a warmth that reached through the screen like a remembered touch. Each line unfolded like a quiet embrace, filled with grace he didn't think he deserved anymore. Subject, thinking of you. River, I'm writing this because I couldn't just let that phone call hang in the air like that. I'm so incredibly sorry, truly sorry that you were subjected to Ireland's callousness. She should never have put you on the spot like that, especially without warning, and certainly not without your knowledge. It was manipulative and unkind, and I've made that very clear to her. I deeply regret any distress it caused you. More importantly, I am so incredibly sorry to hear about Vera. My heart aches for you. She was such a wonderful woman, so full of warmth and kindness. I remember her laughter, her quiet strength. She always treated me like family, and I adored her. Please accept my deepest condolences. I can only imagine how difficult this time must be for you. I also heard about everything that happened at Christmas. I don't know the full story, River, and I don't pretend. But from what I gathered and from what Ireland chose to share, it sounds like an incredibly painful and violating experience. No one deserves that, especially not in their own home. I know you're busy with your studies and everything, but I wanted to reach out directly to tell you that I'm thinking of you, and that my offer to talk as friends still stands when you're ready, or if you're not. There's no pressure, River, just genuine concern from an old friend. Please take care of yourself. Kate. River read the email once, then again, his eyes devouring every word. He felt a strange mixture of relief and a profound, aching sorrow. Relief that Kate wasn't filled with pity or condemnation, but genuine empathy and apology. Sorrow that it took Ireland's malice for her to reach out. Her words about Vera, her kindness, her understanding of the Christmas horror. It was a balm to his raw soul. He pictured her in Scotland, perhaps with her boys, her life full and vibrant, yet still taking the time to send this message. An unsolicited act of grace. And just for a moment, just a breath, he let himself imagine what it would feel like to be held by her again. Not physically, spiritually, seen not as a broken man clawing his way through trauma, but as the boy she'd once kissed under soft lights and quiet stars. He closed his laptop, the screen darkened, leaving him in the dim glow of his desk lamp. He leaned back in his chair, a long, shuddering sigh escaping his lips. Kate. She remembered. She understood. And she cared. The knowledge was a potent drug. a fragile spark of hope in the desolate landscape of his life, but it also reignited the deep-seated unworthiness that had always plagued him. Did he deserve her concern? Did he deserve her kindness after everything? After Lakin? After his past? After all the years he'd been running? The answer, as always, felt like a resounding no. The email from Kate sat in River's inbox, a luminous beacon in the otherwise grim landscape of his digital life. He reread it countless times over the next few days, each word a balm, each phrase a testament to the genuine Kate he remembered. Her empathy for Vera's passing, her understanding of the Christmas debacle, her clear condemnation of Ireland's manipulation. It was all there, untainted by judgment. But her offer to talk as friends weighed on him, a profound burden disguised as an invitation. He burned a reply. His fingers itched for the keyboard, his soul twisted in yearning. He wanted to spill every aching detail. How the world had cracked when Vera died, how the air felt too sharp to breathe, how the only voice that still made him feel alive was hers. Kate, the girl whose love he'd once walked away from, thinking he was saving her from himself. He wanted to tell her about the velvet mask, about the strange isolating fame, about the raw truths he sang to millions but could tell no one. He wanted to tell her about the relentless guilt, the unworthiness that gnawed at him, the way he constantly felt he disappointed everyone. He wanted to explain why he'd run, why he'd chosen Lake, and why he was so broken. He wanted to reach out to the one person who had always seen him, truly seen him, even in his darkest moments. But deep fear held him captive. First, there was the fear of rejection, a deeply ingrained terror that stemmed from his earliest abandonment by his biological parents, compounded by Adam's harsh words during his addiction, and solidified by Kate's own initial, "I can't," in Berlin. He was terrified of opening himself up, of revealing the full extent of his current brokenness, only to have her retreat, to confirm his deepest fear that he was indeed too much, too damaged, too unworthy. He pictured her life in Scotland with her boys, her thriving art, her apparent happiness. He couldn't bear to disrupt that with his own chaos, to bring his shadows into her light. He imagined her studio smelling faintly of jasmine and paint, children's toys tucked in the corners of her orderly joy, laughter echoing in warm hallways. What right did he have to call her back into his shadows? What could he offer her but fragments? Then there was the complication of Lakin. The divorce was still ongoing, a cold, formal process. To reach out to Kate now, while still legally married, felt like another betrayal, however symbolic. Lakin, in her spite, could easily twist it, use it against him, and drag Kate into their messy public battle. The thought of Kate, pure and unassuming, being dragged into his sordid reality, being exposed to Lakin's malice or Ireland's cruelty, made him recoil. He had already inadvertently put her in Ireland's path. He wouldn't risk more. And there was the velvet mask. His anonymity was paramount, his only true sanctuary. If he allowed himself to reconnect with Kate, someone from his past, someone who knew him, someone who was now strangely connected to Ireland, the risk of exposure would increase exponentially. He was a faceless artist, a global phenomenon. If his identity as River Hayes, the medical student, the unhappily married man, the survivor of addiction and abuse, were to be revealed, it would shatter his career, compromise his medical future, and utterly destroy the last vestiges of his privacy. He was caught between his desperate longing for genuine connection and his fierce need for anonymity. He stared at his phone, at the compose button on his email. He typed, then deleted, typed, then deleted. The words felt inadequate, hollow, unable to convey the maelstrom of emotion swirling within him. He wanted to tell her everything, but where would he begin? How could he condense years of pain, layers of trauma, a lifetime of feeling unworthy, into an email? He sighed, the sound heavy in the quiet apartment. He knew he had a choice: reach out and risk everything, his heart, his secrets, his very fragile peace, or remain silent, cloaked in his misery and his anonymity, forever haunted by the ghost of what he and Kate might have been. The weight of that choice pushed him, choking him. He was a man drowning, and Kate's email was a lifeline he was terrified to grasp. He hovered over the keyboard, a man at the edge of a frozen lake, knowing that to move forward meant risking everything. The ice might crack, his world might shatter, but staying still meant freezing to death slowly in silence. Her message waited like a shore fire, and he was still too afraid to advance. River's home studio, once his sanctuary, now felt claustrophobic. He stared at Kate's email glowing on the laptop screen, her kind words simultaneously warming and breaking his heart. His finger hovered over the reply button, his body taut with hesitation. He needed guidance. Someone who knew the man beneath the velvet mask. He called James. His cousin and lead guitarist took the second ring. Yo, masked man, burning the midnight oil, got another hit coming? Something like that, River muttered. Can you come over? I need to talk. It's important. There was a pause. Heavy? James asked, his tone shifting. Yeah, River said softly. Just come. Half an hour later, James sat on the edge of the studio couch, a beer in hand, his laid-back energy subdued by concern. River paced, running a hand through his hair, visibly unmoored. What's going on? James finally asked. You look like you've seen a ghost, I got an email, River said, his voice hollow. From Kate. James blinked. Kate? As in Berlin, Kate? River nodded. Then the words poured out. Ireland's ambush of a phone call, Kate's confused voice, the mention of her sons, the haunting silence. He told James about the email, Kate's apology, her condolences for Vera, and her offer to talk. It all spilled in raw, uneven sentences. James listened, his expression darkening with every word. When River finished, James exhaled, placing his beer on the floor. River, he said quietly, seriously, you still love her. That's not a surprise. But she has kids. That probably means she has a husband. She has a life now, one you're not part of. River's chest tightened. I just want to talk. She reached out. I know, James said, softer now, but talking to her right now, alone? That's dangerous. For you and for her. She's friends with Ireland, man. Don't forget who we're dealing with. Ireland doesn't do anything unless there's a hook in it. River looked down, guilt and longing swirling inside him. So what? I ignore her? James shook his head. No. But you don't walk in blind either. I'll set up a group message, email or call. I'll be on it too. I'll steer things if they get too personal. That's why it stays safe. If Kate's real about wanting to reconnect, she'll understand. River hesitated, then slowly nodded. Okay. But no Ireland. Promise, James said. Then grabbing a guitar, he added, now, write about this. Pour it into music. Pain like this, it's gotta go somewhere. River nodded, taking his notebook. Ghosts, he murmured, the title already taking shape. River's phone buzzed with a notification from James. Group chat invite. You, me, Kate. Voice call. Tonight, be ready. His stomach dropped. The day crawled. River moved through his hospital shift on autopilot, thoughts stuck on what he might say or what Kate might say or what Ireland had already said. When the hour came, he was at his desk, headphones on, palms damp. James's voice cut in first. All right, Rive. Are you there? Kate's joining now, a soft chime. Then, hi, James. Thanks for doing this, Kate's voice. Warm, friendly, familiar. River's breath caught. She still had that soft, lilting accent, the one he used to love hearing first thing in the morning. River's here, too, James said easily. He's just a little quiet. Oh, Kate replied, slight surprise in her voice. Hi, River. Hope you're doing okay. River managed a strained hey. It came out hoarse, almost apologetic. James stepped in again, steering the conversation. We were just talking about music. River was saying you used to love screaming echoes. Kate laughed softly. Oh, I still do. Moody and gorgeous. I've been listening to them a lot lately, actually. The conversation unfolded, James guiding with ease. They talked about art, her photography, her exhibitions in Edinburgh. She spoke with the bright energy of someone fulfilled, someone content. River barely spoke, but he soaked in every word. Her joy, her creativity, her passion. She was thriving. And he was surviving. The tone was just beginning to relax when Kate paused. 1 second, guys. Someone's calling. River's heart stuttered. A minute later, she was back. Hey, I just added my friend Ireland to the call. She wanted to say hi. River froze. No. Then came the voice. Oh, Kate, who are we chatting with tonight? River and James? Ireland's syrupy tone made River's skin crawl. The venom was barely hidden. Just catching up, Kate said casually. They were asking about my photography. Oh yes, Ireland drawled. River's very dedicated to his art and his ability to disappear when things get difficult. A beat of silence. River clenched his fists, rage coiling beneath his skin, but he said nothing. Ireland continued, her tone saccharine. Isn't it wild how some people build beautiful lives while others just run from everything? Abandonment, emotional unavailability, patterns. And then Kate's voice, gentle but strong, cut through the malice like a blade. Or maybe, she said quietly, some people retreat because they've had to survive things no one should. like parents who re-enter your life just to manipulate and bleed you dry, or having to watch the people you love be threatened, used. Ireland fell silent. Kate went on, voice rising slightly with conviction. It's easy to call someone a runner. It's harder to understand what they're running from. Sometimes retreating is how you survive, and sometimes surviving is the bravest thing you can do. River sat frozen, stunned. James was silent too. Someone had defended him. Kate knew. Somehow she knew the whole truth, and she chose to defend him in front of Ireland. His chest tightened, but it wasn't grief or panic. It was something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Silence followed the call's abrupt end, swallowing the room whole. Ireland had hung up, but her voice still echoed, venom clinging to the air like smoke. River lowered the phone with trembling hands, nausea creeping up his throat. His chair scraped against the hardwood as he pushed away from his desk, needing distance from the device that had just unraveled him. He felt stripped bare. His most vulnerable truth, his love for Kate, had been twisted and exposed. Ireland's voice looped in his mind, barbed, smug, carefully crafted to contrast his failures with Kate's radiant full life. He had been a bystander to his humiliation. But overtop that horror was something else, Kate's voice. Bewildered at first, then steady and sharp with protectiveness. Her words came back in fragments, but one line struck like lightning every time. Some people retreat because they've been pushed. When your own biological parents force themselves back into your life, not out of love, but with threats and neglect to your adoptive parents, and then they use you, abuse you, bleed you dry. Kate had defended him, fiercely, clearly. She knew the truth, not just outlines, but the specific, brutal reality of his biological family's manipulation. And she had spoken that truth aloud, against Ireland, without hesitation. A strange warmth bloomed in his chest, not the weak flicker of hope he usually swatted down, but something more grounded. Gratitude, awe, maybe even the faintest sense of being worthy. Just for a moment. Then came the memory. It was years ago, a party. He'd been newly sober, fighting for each day. He told Ireland he wasn't drinking. He couldn't. She'd handed him a glass anyway, smiling. Just something light, she'd said. It wasn't. He remembered the way his body had betrayed him, how it had triggered the familiar craving, the spiral back into shame. Until now, he'd blamed himself. But it hadn't been innocent. She'd wanted him to fall. He never confronted her. Instead, she'd slipped closer to Lakin, becoming her confidant, her shield, her enforcer. Together, they'd twisted their knives in him, Lakin with her silent disdain, Ireland with sharp smiles and whispered cruelty. And now Ireland had used Kate to cut him open. But Kate didn't play along. In the days that followed, River blocked Ireland everywhere. He tightened his online presence, became more vigilant in public. The threat of exposure loomed large, but there was also quiet. And then a new email. Subject just checking in. River, I'm still thinking about that last call. It was confusing for everyone. I hope you're okay. And I'm still so sorry about Vera. Thinking of you. Love, Kate. It was short, cautious, but kind and real, he replied, brief, guarded, thanking her for her concern and apologizing for the chaos. He didn't mention Ireland again, but something had shifted.